Ladies and gentlemen, poets of the East is honored to present Nayma Chamchoun, author and poet. Ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome Nayma Chamchoun, a wonderful poet, artist, and actress, I'm going to say, who has found a wonderful way of presenting her insights and her art in so many media. An internationally renowned writer and poet. Nayma, welcome to Poets of the East.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
An honor. Uh, I've got some questions for you. We typically start off the show with a small group of questions. And I know we've had a chance to talk before. Please mention your new book first.
Absolutely. The new book is out. It's called, right, there we are, Saging, Not Aging.
Now, for people who don't quite get the lovely metaphor there, what are you getting at with the title?
What was I getting at? I think, it felt like a period where I was trying to sort of cleanse my circle of any negative energies and trying to just sort of create a nice vibe and a nice energy that would be conductive to my well-being and mental health. And so I think that's where the idea came from, where it was kind of expelling all the negative elements from our lives that kind of bring us down and focusing on the negatives which help to uplift us.
You know, one of the things that I like so much about the title is that it seems that so much of popular culture is, oh, I'm going to say age phobic, right?
Yes.
If not ageist. And I think that you've really captured something very important that says, without belaboring the point, there's insight, there is experience, there is wisdom that comes from aging, and that should be the emphasis, that we appreciate those of us who've been around for a few weeks rather than be so attentive to numbers or so attentive to wrinkles and all that sort of thing. I can't count how many times I've heard people worry about whether it be a gray hair or a wrinkle. And so much of our, should we say, commercial world is about hiding any signs of aging. Oh my God. And I think you put your finger right on something so very important and so very, very valid that comes with spending time on the planet: wisdom, experience. Beautifully done, and captured with a sense of humor too, I might add.
Absolutely.
Okay, so first, I know we've met before and we've talked about some of these things, but I think it's never a bad thing to give us a chance to learn a little bit about Nayma all over again. So first, when did you start writing?
Oh my goodness. I think I've probably written since I was a very young child. At primary school, I enjoyed writing short stories, funny limericks, poems, things like that. And I think, that was something that probably continued throughout most of my childhood and my adolescence. I kept a journal during my adolescence. And I think it was only sort of when I was married at 17 that I kind of stopped writing for quite a while, and then I just gravitated back to it with COVID.
Yeah, I know when I was a child, I used to love going to libraries, and I always kind of knew that one day books of mine would be in there too. So it was, yeah, I started very young also. In fact, when I was about 8, I was given a tape recorder and I would go around and interview people with my little microphone. So I've polished my craft a little, anyway, a little. Okay. Do you remember when you were young, any of those authors that made an impression on you when you were still very young?
I think when I was young, I loved the works of Roald Dahl. C.S. Lewis and the Narnia Chronicles were huge favorites of mine. Uh, I think those are probably some of the standout writers. I mean, also Judy Blume, I loved. as a teenager. She just spoke to the teenager in all of us. I love Judy Blume, Betsy Bears, and I think, sort of in my adolescence, I sort of started gravitating more towards writers like Maya Angelou and Alec Baldwin, and obviously T.S. Eliot. I discovered T.S. Eliot in my teenage years and just absolutely adore him.
Wonderful, wonderful. Um, you you were writing young. When did you sort of acknowledge to yourself that writing was important to you? Do you remember?
I think I didn't acknowledge it for a very long time. I mean, I think, as a teenager, I dreamt of being a writer. I mean, it was something that was always there at the back of my mind. And then because of the enforced marriage at 17 and a very unhappy relationship, I stopped writing for a very long time. And I think maybe that relationship kind of shook my confidence in the sense that I doubted. I started to doubt whether I was actually able to be a writer. I was like, you're not good enough to be a writer. And I kind of dismissed it as an unobtainable dream for a very long time. And then, as I said, COVID happened. And then I found myself gravitating back to writing. And I just found it so therapeutic and at the same time and so helpful. And I think during the course of writing my first collection, that was when I realized just how important writing was to me, and that I had missed it. I'd been away for a very long time, and I had really missed it.
Now, when you were young, did you have instructors or teachers that encouraged you to write, or did that not really occur?
I had one teacher, it's still one of my happiest memories, was when I was about 9. My primary school, I used to write short stories. I wrote a little collection of stories about a family of tramps who lived in an alleyway. And my teacher at the time loved the stories, and she told me she was going to send them to a publisher and see if we could get them published, and that was a huge boost of confidence that my teacher thought my stories were worth being published. And I didn't get published, but I did get an amazing rejection letter, and I got a signed copy of Ramona and Beezus by my favorite author at the time, Betsy Bears. And
Wow,
having a signed copy of a book from her was like Christmas had come early for me. So yeah, so my teachers were. I mean, I've had amazing English teachers that have just been so inspirational. So I've been very fortunate in that sense. Um, and my sister, again, she was always very supportive and very encouraging. She used to do lists of books for me to read. So she would suggest a book, and then I would read it. And then once I'd finished, she'd say, "Okay, this is the next one on your list." And I used to love that.
wonderful. Okay, next question. Uh, you mentioned the COVID time and should we say the growth of online poetry groups and stuff. Um, was there anything that surprised you about what you've learned from the online poetry community, or not really?
I wouldn't say surprised, or maybe pleasantly surprised. I think is the sense of camaraderie and support, and it genuinely feels like an extended family, and it's a wonderful community. I mean, we all support and encourage each other, and we create opportunities for each other to showcase our work. And I have nothing but huge love and respect for the poetry community.
Okay. Next question, and this is one of those what I'm going to call poetic strategy questions. Uh, there are some people in the poetry community who believe that we should write every day just for practice, and others who say, no, 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 I wait until I get inspiration to write. On that spectrum from necessity practice to only when inspiration, where do you fall in that spectrum?
Oh gosh, I think I'm a very very laid back writer in a sense. Certainly with poetry, I usually wait for inspiration to find me, and then I will run with the thought. And I may get the first 2 lines or even the first stanza of a poem, and then I might not get anything for the rest of the day. And it may come to me in dribs and drabs, or sometimes a poem will come to me all at once in the space of one day. So, it really varies. And often when I do start a poem, I mean, I couldn't tell you from the first stanza what themes I'm going to explore or where I think that poem is going to go, because generally I just tend to follow the thread of thought, and it will lead me in all sorts of directions. I mean, sometimes I've been surprised when I finish a piece. Oh, actually, I did not intend to explore that particular theme, but here we are.
Gotcha. Okay, next, are there themes or topics that you find yourself coming back to again and again?
I suppose there are certainly uh, themes that I probably explored in both collections, and that would be cultural identity and duality, certainly aging as well, um, and a sort of political resistance. I would say absolutely that. I think that is the voice that is still there, and I felt probably with COVID there was a difference in tone, because you asked me, you said to me, oh, what did I think that I had learned? And I thought, what, I think I've learned sort of peace with myself, with my imperfect self within an imperfect world. With my first collection, I felt like I only scratched the surface of past trauma, and I was still very conflicted in my cultural identity. I also felt politically it felt like the voice of disillusionment and powerlessness. So maybe COVID, the wordy wilds of a mind under lockdown, was the process of finding our way out of thoughts and feelings COVID triggered in us at all, and emergence out of a COVID world. Whereas saging, not aging, felt more like the arrival. I had my first experience with love at 51, so a little late, granted, but that was probably the result of my cultural upbringing and experiences. I mean, I accepted that my cultural identity didn't have to be one or the other, but was a beautiful patchwork of both. A new improved version, if you will, better because of both influences. Staging, not aging, delves into love because I had experienced love at the time that I started writing COVID. But it delves into romantic love, self-love, love for our fellow human beings and for our world. It also searches into past trauma, and it makes its peace with that pain and accepts that that pain too has contributed to this arrival. So it confronts themes of aging in relation to societal, cultural expectations, and releases that burden of expectation. It questions the moral compass of power and challenges that corruption. And I think, it demands that we never stop saying our piece for peace.
Very good. Okay, next question. Um, oftentimes we meet beginning poets, young poets who are wondering if poetry is a viable art form. Too many times we hear in culture that poetry is dismissed as a frivolity, as an effete art that no one listens to or pays attention to. It's unimportant. So if a young person asked you, is poetry worthwhile? Is it worthwhile to work on being a poet, being a good poet, being a poet that performs, a poet that reaches out, or is that something better, just not a time waster? What do you think?
I would say that, if you are considering being a poet, you we don't go into poetry for the money. It's not something that, I mean,
Oh no! Oh,
most up and coming artists are broke. So, I think, you're going to go into poetry because it is something that you feel passionate about. It's something that evokes something in you, and you hope that it will also evoke something in those who read and hear your work. And I think, so in that respect, if somebody was to ask me, is it worth going into poetry? If you have to ask that question, then maybe not, because it's worth going in for your own sense of expression, artistic expression, and also growth, emotional and personal growth. Absolutely, yes.
Okay. Uh, would you say, and this is a kind of a new question in my list of questions, what is it that makes a good poet?
Gosh, that's a hard one, isn't it? I think a
I
poet
try to
that
ask
is,
hard questions in smart people.
I suppose, a poet that is able to capture an emotion or a message and is able to make the reader feel the power of what he's trying to convey, to be emotionally moved by that experience of having read that piece.
Okay. Um, Next question. Is narrative important in poetry? Message.
Gosh, I mean, it can. I mean, I don't think it's necessarily important in the sense that, whether if it is a piece that is done in the first person or if it's a piece that's done in the third person. I think you're still able to capture the essence and the emotion of what you're trying to relay, whichever perspective you take. I think it is, narrative is a tool, uh, in the sense that you can decide whether you want the reader, whether it is a conversation, a direct conversation between you and the reader in the first person, or whether you want the reader to be observing the situation in, say, a third person from afar, but having a much better view of the dynamics of the situation.
Okay. Next, what kind of reading do you do for fun, for entertainment?
Well, fun, gosh, yeah. Well, I mean, I read a little bit of everything. I mean, I enjoy a good novel. I don't read a lot of poetry, funnily enough, but I do read occasionally. I go back to my favorites like Rumi and Khalil Gibran. I love the work of the mystics. So occasionally I go back to favorites. I think, last month I reread The Little Prince, which is one of my absolute favorite books. So, I occasionally go back there. But then, I also read a lot of new poets since joining the poetry online community. I've read some fabulous, fabulous work, and the sort of contemporary poetry is just like booming at the moment.
Okay, next question. Uh, Before we start your reading, where can people get your new book, Saging Not Aging?
Saging Not Aging is available on Amazon.uk and Amazon.com. And please do buy it.
Of course. Splendid book to add to your repertoire. Now, my dear, the favorite part of the show, when I turn to my poet and say, read what you would love to read. Don't worry about time. Read the long pieces you don't get a chance to do very often. Read whatever it is you'd like us to know about.
Thank you. Okay, I'll start cherry picking. At the doctor's for a virginity test, heavy hearted, it is pointless to protest. In the office where I sat on my father's knee, Dr. Holman chuckling merrily, gifting Smarties, plenty of fluids and rest. Then, trapped, spread-legged on the table, glimpses of a mahogany desk and a sky blue screen, a shaft of sunlight, unable to warm the sterile scene. A torch shone into the crest of the cradle. I am worth nothing if sullied, a slab of meat that only the jackals eat, the shame of the lance that won't bleed. Hereafter, every examination stained in harrowing humiliation. I am the mute adolescent, silently screaming, dunked in the trauma, dormantly sleeping, dirty hands vying for the fruits of the tree, entitled and waving sticks. How the ego gets its kick. Pilgrims at the altar for hymenal purity. I shatter the shrine. The ownership is mine. The forbidden garden, forbidden to all but them. Thank you.
My goodness, powerful, powerful stuff. Wow. Wow.
Thank you.
And so well delivered, my dear. You even if it wasn't your poetry, your delivery was amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you. Okay, shall I move on to the next piece?
Oh, please, please.
L'artiste, c'est la poétesse. See how she runs to the flame, like the moth to luminous things, knowing her wings may be singed, filaments of light, a Pied Piper's song. She is brave and foolhardy, yearning for the rage of the furnace, meeting its inferno head first, smirking as she sips her Bacardi, seeking ruinous pleasure, rising out of yesterday's ashes. Her voice drips like molasses. She beckons the seeker of treasure. He giving charge to her power. His tone, a call to love. The hand and the glove, each form shaped for the other, vibrating. A woman empowered, surging with confidence and allure. She pours back into the source for him to savor and devour. His hands tease such delicate strokes. She is the canvas of his passion. He works with ardent compulsion, an explosion of the joy she evokes. She watches him from her desk, painting him with her mastery of words, each immortalizing the paradise shared, the celebration their hands express. She woos him with her artistry of language, he with the hues of his soul, drinking from the other's bowl, their movements louche and languid. Les amores muse, oil and colour, pen and paper, mixing as they fuse, radiating. He smiles. She is called my soul's twin. Tell me, what do you think, darling poetess? He soars on the expression her eyes express. She hums, come, my twin, let our souls burn through our skin. Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful, just exquisite. You're a marvelous poet, my dear, with such a wonderful command. Not just, as I say, how eloquent your metaphors are, but your delivery is for the stars. Just amazing.
Thank you. I'll move on to the next one, shall I? Gosh.
Please do. Now, if you'd like to comment on any of these, talking about, what was the inspiration or anything we should know about them, that's wonderful too. But please, otherwise, continue reading. You're mesmerizing, my dear.
Thank you. The next piece is a piece that was written during some personal turmoil in the UK. Woe betide, woe betide, the land which stays hand in hand with and for the corporations who trade in exploitation. Woe betide the command where the layered withstand the cold in their homes, monitoring the ohms. Woe betide the rulers who feebly hide in coolers as the food banks bear the beleaguered, and the bankers are rewarded by leaders. Woe betide the wolves dressed as sheep who impose the choice of eat or heat, playing economic roulette as the stakes soar. Foreclosure notices on the mat by the door. Woe betide the place which celebrates its disgrace, working all the hours of the day, still hungry with bills to pay. Woe betide the government whose greedy, sleazy intent underpays doctors and nurses as their bonuses fatten their purses. Woe betide the house of cards, which collapses and bombards the battered deck, holding it up, offering trickles from its cup. Woe betide the schemers of empires fallen, who fight wars with poverty's sons, winning even when their webs come undone. For they are the horsemen of days woe begone. Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful. When you take such a beautiful cudgel to societal's ills, it's just so well done, so eloquent. Thank you.
Thank you. Next piece. Hands. Oftentimes, I have old hands, their bulging branched surface convex, like veins, clogged with life's short shrift, trapped in the hourglass with the sands. They chide and unconsciously caught in the corner of the eye, and they scurry for pockets to hide, like objects, offence and injury, some days shimmering calmly like the veil of a lake, dissolving trails of ink, faintly flickering artfully. They are the hands skimming stones across a languid liquid surface, who grew out the hems of school trousers and held the boy in steadying embrace, releasing the man to face fortune. The hands cupped in prayer, reaching in the dark for the light, whose pleas were damningly denied as flailing faith writhed and died. Sacrilege avec savoir-faire. The hands who nursed back to health and creatively crafted cuisine, taking dictation from the emotional stream, relentlessly rising out of the ravine, their graceful beauty taking away breath, the facade heralding the interior, clasping them like the hands of loved ones achingly absent for far too long. And they cheer from the memory's loggia. Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Thank you. Okay, so, shall I move on?
Please, please.
Since we are in a poetic forum. I shall do a piece that was inspired by fellow poets, chasing poets. I gazed into fields of bladed grass, and my bones felt the cold. At Wordsworth's cherished crowds, densely adrift as the wayfaring clouds, and of Brooks' eternal England, I searched sorrowfully for the strand that could tie my restless hand to belonging and the end of longing. The crisp air greyly blurs the awning, dimming the warmth and staining the sun's vivacious gold. In Shakespeare's Eden, the apple eaten and the sins repeatedly died for, buoyed by Blake, to ride, thoughts soar, the wings heavy and lackadaisical, craving the heights of the astrophysical, dawn song that sang the metaphysical of exploding colour and scorching heat, the light's verve coaxing easy release, quenched by alpine streams softly seeping. Browning's amour of April brings but icy showers, which douse and deaden the embers. Still, the senses longingly remember thoughts of the homestead abroad, where the heart patiently thawed and the spirit sprawled inawed. The shepherds of Rossetti who save, seek in turn the flock that saves, as they herd the arduous days and hours. The disturbance of Eliot's spring disturbs from deep within. Her shades paled and granite as silver stealthily bleeds out the night. Where are the mornings whose chorus awakes the bird song which reaches the ear and makes one rise from their bed to tearfully embrace each tiny tick of the calculating clock, the beats that race and breathlessly stop at the trailing voices in the air, cajoling the song bliss brings, affronted by Larkin's bespectacled smirks, tolling up life's net and gross worth, desecrating the temple of the earth, as they profit and pass on expense without conscience or penitence. Still, your presence, arm's defense, the oration that speaks life into living, the company of the heart's thanksgiving, the joysome gymna of poetic converse. Thank you.
Beautiful, just beautiful. You know, I think one of the things that gives you such a unique perspective is you've had a foot in two worlds at least, and you know you've lived out of the UK and you lived in the UK, and I think you have a very interesting take on you know the experience of the artist and that multiplicity of worlds that you've been engaged in. You've lived in different cultures, and I think you bring so much to that, and you have found such an eloquent voice. I have to congratulate you. You do just such a marvelous job. Please, my dear, read on.
Read on. Where should we go from here? Maybe I'll do a long piece.
Please do.
After Alfred, a response to the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock. This is how we stay, you and I, when the dying sun bleeds into the sky. Amongst your rainbow, organized clatter, amber air, filtering through the shatters, murmured discourse across the coffee table. There's voices tenderly cosset like silken sable, romanced by the rapture which so easily enthralls our flirty festival, deaf to the imam's call, the grandiosity, Moroccan gilage, so befitting the moment, colourfully beaming, proudly, without encroachment, darkness sifting into the room, a tagine ashtray with smoky plumes. In the Casbah, women stop and chat, talking of victory in the World Cup, strolling through the scattered stalls of the souks as the dust nestled before settling on our skin. The musk and kufta infused air, our clothes drink in, the charmer and the serpent, charmed by the flute, down dehydrated alleyways with lumpy footpaths, who silently sigh imperialist epitaphs, the sunny fingers who poke through the arches, rubbing against our faces as she teasingly arches. Surely there is not enough time for the eternal soul to express the elation that rebukes the world's transgress. There is never enough time. Clawing at our arms and baring its fangs, the ebbing humanity that lingers in turn as we scuttle down the acrid alcoves where the air whispered olive groves. There is never enough time to consume all the joy, to face the forces whose gluttony only destroys. Time to put the world to rights and say, to stretch across sweeping space and time, to stay in the Casbah. Women stop and chat, talking of victory in the World Cup. There is not enough time to consider and reconsider the future's plans, to reprimand the existence that felt like a sham, to wonder when first the crows landed in the corner of the eye. Console the beautiful fool who choked to challenge culture, tittering tongues. Such a shame, an ungodly life. Their pitying stares, feigning care, stabbing like a knife. See how the colour drains from my cheeks and hair. I was once beautiful. My insecurities keeping me unaware. If I breathed you in and held my breath, could we stay, you and I, in eternity's depth? I have known the men who sexted and courted, acquainted with the over-familiarity of breaking wind and poking orifices, a romance long since dimmed. The holidays in cheap hotel rooms where I faked love to fill the gloom, faded cigarette smoke and designer perfume. They will say, Macat slash. I too am familiar with them all, the rampant looking for a booty call, the Thai restaurants with lemongrass walls, the sexual role play that disguises ennui, the TV flashing an old childhood matinee. Should I flinch at the judgment of your double standards, scouring my sullied skin to wash away the hands? I have felt the hand that pinned my arms above my head, its fingers calloused and fat like sausages. The invented drama that attempts to assuage the coarse stubble that paws at your cheeks, the restlessness that fuels rendezvous in car back seats, Chanel blue on your t-shirt, and I forget. What was I saying? I served myself bare. Are you shocked yet? When we were seated on the wall above the sea, the ocean dressed in a veil of encrusted diamonds, before the light shimmied into the ebony horizon, I should have accosted Father Time, cursed him for not granting more time. How the snow outside settles so comfortably, its Arctic breaths drifting in with the draft, presenting merriment, bringing chaos, frosty rabid jaws that chill to the bone, pushing into our sensory nerves as we sit numbly, seeing your message flash on the phone. Your warmth surrounds me. I berate myself silently. This is not me. I scoff at love and the impossible reality sold. Am I a realist or a cynic? Maybe I'm just too old. You knew I was afraid. I was terrified. After beef tagine and Moroccan salad, after roll-ups and hot drooling, pate, to selfishly stop the seconds, to say, let us stay this way forever and a day, to tame the white noise with your varied ballad, to balance that flicker, hurtling through the infinite universe, behind a devoured Mother Earth, to embrace that ecstasy to my pulse, to say, I am Aphrodite, here to engulf. Cliche. Age mockingly snickers amongst the dyed paintbrushes and finished tableaus. The water in the jar tinged plum. The way you always place your hand behind your back as the other moves across the canvas like a bird in flight, simultaneously awed and dumbstruck. You are somewhere else, in the contours only an artist knows. Glimpses of joy and sorrow in a coat of many colours, where we spoke only in the tongue of the land of our mother. Our clothes tossed on the floor, the eyes who lap up and store a catalogue of mannerisms to recall. I pleaded with time to mercifully stall. Christmas looms and festivity finds no place in my will. Maybe the frenzied buying and gluttonous eating will obliviously pass me by if I just sit really still. The goodwill to all men, as indelible as the greetings, the artificial tree, still banished under the stairs, grudgingly goads me for my slovenly lack of care, taunting me with descent into malaise. But I am so tired and all out of rage. Should I fritter away life's pittance on age-defying creams, popping silicone, eating superfoods, washed down with green tea? I dismay at my wearied, sagging eyes, how my breasts no longer shun gravity. Time's unrelenting, harsh reality. He does not wait for me. Walking along the beach, footsteps tickling the tide. My black dress's hem dusted in the salt of the sea. Me in a skewed straw hat. The sun in your eyes. I would spend it all, consume it all, night and day, wildly laughing in the face of advancing grey. If I thought it would keep us forever this way. Thank you.
Wow. Wow. Absolutely amazing. What a tour de force.
Thank
Wow.
you.
Wow. It's such, my goodness, how evocative of a relationship with its cynical side, its delightful side, its delirious side. Absolutely stunning. Really a stunning piece of work. What is that one called?
That one is After Alfred, a response to the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock. I suppose the inspiration came from, I thought it would be nice to have a female response to Prufrock's song.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One really gets a sense that you're inside a female persona. I think it's amazingly well done. Just
Thank
amazing.
you.
Congratulations.
Thank
Congratulations.
you.
And which of your books is that one in?
That is in Saging, Not Aging.
How absolutely appropriate. My dear, thank you so very much. Just an exquisite chance to speak with you.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to catch up with you, Rick. I'm a huge fan of your work and your performances.
Thank you. Well, my dear, I'm going to give you the last word. Any final thoughts you want to leave to our poetic friends?
Just keep writing, keep expressing, keep making your voices heard.
Thank you again, my dear. Just an honor and a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you.
Have a good day, dear.
You
Bye
too,
bye.
my friend. Take care.